Good evening. Thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business, and I'm Paul Graney. Better job growth than expected last month. We have details on where the jobs are and the challenges ahead. Concerns over the global semiconductor supply chain. A new report says production is too geographically concentrated. And a video full of celebrities is causing a buzz on the internet. But what exactly are they promoting? That and much more coming up at NTD Business. Big jobs report out today. The Labor Department says the US added more than 900,000 jobs last month. It's almost double the number in February. The unemployment rate dropping from 6.2% down to 6%, and the president welcoming the good news today, but says there's more work to be done.
Today's report also reminds us how deep a hole we started in. After a year of devastation, there are still 8.4 million fewer jobs today than there were last March.
Julia Pollock is a labor economist with ZipRecruiter, one of the country's top job sites. Asked her where we saw the most success last month.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that we're seeing great recovery in those out and about industries that were really heavily hit by the pandemic at the start. So restaurants added 176,000 jobs. The entertainment industry added 74,000 jobs. Hotels, a whole bunch of those sort of leisure and hospitality industries added thousands of jobs. But we're also seeing continued strength in those stay-at-home industries that have been boosted right since the start of the pandemic. So construction, for example, and warehousing, couriers and delivery. So the big winners from the pandemic are still holding strong and are still creating a huge number of jobs.
You feel that one of the next problems we'll have to deal with is actually filling the available jobs, is that right?
Yes, I do think that is going to become a challenge soon. The one measure we didn't really see improve much was labor force participation, which has been quite flat over the past few months. So even though vaccinations are accelerating, even though schools are now reopening across the country, we did not see that many people who have left the labor force come back. And that's because many people have now been searching for more than a year. They searched most intensely when it was most frustrating to do so, and their prospects were not that great. And many have not quite realized that it's a whole new world out there, that job seekers' prospects have improved dramatically in the last 2 months, and there are far more opportunities now than there were just a couple months ago.
Do you put this down to things as well, like maybe parents who had to stay at home to look after kids? Are we still seeing these kinds of disruptions as well?
Well, yes. So we did see female labor force participation respond in quite a meaningful way to the increase in employment and education. So as schools are recovering and reopening, we do see prime-age women coming back into the labor force. The job losses for women now are about the same as for men. Throughout this crisis, women's employment has been down by a larger percentage. So yes, that's one margin that's been quite responsive. But more broadly, the number of marginally attached workers, so people who say that they want a job but they didn't search for one in the last 4 weeks, that was largely unchanged at 1.9 million. The labor market is still sort of 3.8 million or so smaller than it was in February last year.
How about the enhanced unemployment benefits that we saw generously given out during the pandemic? Do you think these are holding people back as well? Is there a call for a discussion around this?
So those benefits, the $300 federal supplement will now have been extended until early September. And I think most of the research shows, especially at the start of the pandemic, those benefits were a huge net benefit to the economy. They propped up consumer spending, they buoyed housing markets, they buoyed the stock market, they prevented a kind of wider contagion and economic meltdown. The question is whether keeping those benefits around for the next 6 months will also be a net benefit at the same time that labor market opportunities and prospects are improving, and that waits to be seen. It definitely is the case that Many research studies have found that people often delay really intensifying their job search until benefits are close to expiring. So there may be workers who don't feel that much time pressure right now.
Very good. Julia Pollock, appreciate it. Thank you. And during today's press conference, President Biden also took the opportunity to build up his $2 trillion infrastructure plan. But one reporter asked him, will raising taxes not hurt the economy? Apparently referring to the corporate tax increase from 21% to 28%. Biden says it won't.
Asking corporate America just to pay their fair share will not slow the economy at all. It will make the economy function better and will create more energy.
But the Tax Foundation says raising the corporate tax rate will result in less investment, fewer jobs, lower wages. Think tank estimates Biden's plan would cut long-term economic output by 0.8%, eliminating nearly 160,000 jobs. Business groups, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, say the investment is needed, but they oppose the tax increases. Republicans also criticize the plan for not focusing on what's traditionally considered infrastructure. It only includes, and I say only includes, $115 billion for roads, bridges, and highways. It's a big plan. So Biden wants corporate America to contribute to the country's coffers. But the Treasury Department is about to gift up to $650 billion to the International Monetary Fund. It's part of so-called currency aid to countries hit hardest by the pandemic. But it's not like this is just something recent. The U.S. has been giving away U.S. dollars to the IMF for decades. And since it's under a certain amount, the Treasury doesn't even need congressional approval. Oh, and in the past, the Chinese Communist Party has gotten a lot of the dollars. Not exactly a charity case. Joseph Trevisani, senior analyst at FX Street, says he's been hearing about these IMF special drawing rights since grad school. He says that's a long time ago. I asked him if China could get some of this $650 billion.
That would be an interesting and I think unnecessary possibility. I mean, whether or not it happens, I don't really know. You know, the IMF is a political institution. It is controlled by its board of governors, but it's also, and historically, the U.S. has had an enormous amount of influence there. So it's twofold. Does the U.S. still have the amount of influence that it did in the past? And how does the Biden administration feel about this? I don't know. I don't know that they've been asked, but it would certainly be a very pertinent question for whether or not China will or should receive any IMF funding. It would seem very much to me that they should not.
So where exactly does the money come from for this? Does it come from, as you mentioned, taxes? Will it come from debt? How does it work?
Right now it's going to come from debt and created here in the United States. Because we've already been running trillion-dollar deficits for about 4 years now. What used to be imaginary has now become very commonplace. Every year there's another trillion-dollar deficit. The three stimulus plans for the pandemic were all deficit. So it's going to be more deficit. There's simply no way around it.
Some people have said that potentially in the future there could be a global reserve currency if the US dollar, there was ever any problems. Is there something here with the IMF and this SDRs or?
You know, in the beginning, that was the idea, one of the ideas behind special drawing rights, which is what it actually stands for. But in a practical sense, the world already has a global reserve currency. It's the US dollar. It also has, in essence, a global reserve bank, central bank. It's also the US Federal Reserve. The problem with creating an overarching global currency is that there would be no institution behind it. There would be no country behind it. We have seen the difficulties that the Europeans have had creating a currency whose only institution is a central bank without any political institution other than that. It becomes quite difficult, and we've seen the difference in the recoveries. We've seen the difference in, if you want, just right now, the vaccination rates and the vaccination availability. between the United States and Britain, which have unified central governments, they're a national entity, and the EU, which is not. So that type of problem would be only exacerbated for the world, by trying to create a global currency. I just don't see how it can overcome the practical problems.
Joseph Trevisani, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
A U.S. regulator wants lenders to help homeowners avoid foreclosure, or else get slapped with a penalty. Pandemic relief measures have allowed millions of borrowers to temporarily delay their mortgage payments. But now hundreds of thousands could be on the hook when those measures start to expire in September. So the Bureau says lenders should start reaching out to homeowners now. It says that'll give people enough time to try and modify their loans and hopefully avoid losing their homes. Have you heard of the Well Health Safety Seal? Not many have, but a new video filled with celebrities promoting it is causing a stir on social media. NTD's Phil Zoe has the story.
Big names like J-Lo, Lady Gaga, and Robert De Niro appear in a new promotional video that's gone viral on social media. Even spiritual guru Deepak Chopra and celebrity chef Wolfgang Puck chimed in. But what exactly is the video promoting?
This is the Well Health Safety Seal from the International Well Building Institute, the global authority on healthy building.
It's supposed to give people more confidence when returning to their favorite places.
Going into restaurants,
theaters, stores, hotels,
stadiums, all the places that we love.
To get the rating, the building has to meet more than 14 criteria, including sanitation and air-water quality. Sounds nice, but it's going to cost money to get qualified. Depending on the size of the business, it can range from $3,000 to over $12,000 to get the seal. And there are skeptics. One tweet that got thousands of likes said, "It's a private company selling window stickers to businesses and making a bucket load on scared people." Some people wonder what's the difference between the common health inspection stickers that have letter grades on them compared to this one. Some are even upset, outraged at the disclaimer towards the end of the video that says, "Achievement of the Well Health Safety rating does not guarantee that a space is safe or free from pathogen." Phil Zoe, NTD News.
The health and safety video was supposedly directed by Spike Lee, the same director that brought us She's Gotta Have It. One restaurant owner in Southern California must have missed the memo. He's banning masks inside to protest lockdowns and demand freedom. And he ain't messing around. NTD's Eiling Eng has the story.
Tony Roman owns an Italian restaurant in Huntington Beach, California. While other establishments around him request customers to wear masks, he bans them inside his restaurant, saying they remind him of the lockdown.
I feel if they went away, the lockdown would have ended. I also feel that they represent fear, control, and surrender, so I never want to see him in the restaurant.
Roman says he wants his business to serve as a constitutional battleground in the fight for freedom. The restaurant offered indoor and outdoor dining throughout the pandemic and never shut down. Because of this, he has received multiple threats.
You know, I've had death threats where people want to put a bullet in my head and kill me. People want to burn our restaurant down. People want to spread the virus inside the restaurant, any virus, you know. And I have a criminal case against us. We have alcohol-related violations where they want to take our very valuable license away from us.
He says the government uses lockdown mandates to control people with fear, so he will not back down. The restaurant hosted the Recall Newsom 2020 campaign after the movement decided to hold a celebration for verifying over 1 million signatures.
It's not just a restaurant anymore. It's like a movement, you know, and people want to be here at the restaurant because they feel they can connect with other patriots, American patriots who believe in what they believe in.
Roman and his employees are adamant about not letting the government or police execute a search warrant and intend to keep the restaurant open.
The important thing is you're going to win some battles and lose some battles. But when you're fighting for freedom, it's what's most important that you win the war in the end. And that's what our plan is.
Visitors from near and far ate at his restaurant during the past year. Eileen Eng, NTD News.
A Brooklyn man is accused of using non-public information from a Bloomberg reporter and other sources for insider trading. He apparently bought company securities just before significant corporate events like announcements on potential mergers or acquisitions that sometimes resulted in near immediate increases in the company's share price. So in March, a federal grand jury indicted 38-year-old Jason Peltz for trading on material non-public information. The indictment alleges Peltz had numerous contacts with the reporter over the phone and in person after he began placing the trades with the help of co-conspirators. Peltz has now been charged with securities fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion, and some other offenses. The reporter, though, is not accused of any wrongdoing and hasn't offered any comment. A new study says the global semiconductor supply chain is extremely vulnerable to disruptions because it's too geographically concentrated. That means your phones, fridges, even microwaves could be at risk. An NTD Safar Couture reports.
A new industry study says the global semiconductor supply chain has become more and more vulnerable because suppliers have become more concentrated in certain regions. For example, manufacturing of the most advanced chips is completely located in Asia, mostly in Taiwan.
If there were to be some sort of disruption again in East Asia, for whatever reason, that the United States might not be able to get the chips that it needs for a lot of its not just daily goods, but potentially, defense needs as well.
The report found if Taiwan were unable to make chips for a year, it would cost the global electronics industry almost $500 billion in revenue. The president of the U.S. Taiwan Business Council says there's nothing we can do about it in the short term.
In the longer term, however, there's strong geopolitical currents to diversify high-end manufacturing. So there's more of a balance on either side of the Pacific.
These chips are a wonder of innovation and design that power so much of our country, enable so much of our modern lives.
The U.S. government is working on it. Congress has introduced a bill called the CHIPS Act to encourage investment in chip manufacturing and research in the United States. And Biden is proposing $50 billion for semiconductor manufacturing and research. They don't want the U.S. to be dependent when it comes to key technologies.
What if the Chinese were to block Taiwan and sever Taiwan's ability to export its products, including semiconductors? We'd be seeing significant disruptions.
Walters says semiconductors are very important.
As our electronic goods become more interconnected, as we develop faster TVs and smartphones and more connected automobiles and things like that, the demand for chips is going to continue to increase.
Intel, TSMC, and Samsung are planning 4 factories in the U.S. Meanwhile, China is giving out subsidies to its chip industry as it tries to reduce its dependence on the West. Sapphire Quarter, NTD News.
Despite the chip shortage, Tesla posted record results today for the first quarter. It delivered nearly 185,000 vehicles globally. Refinitiv says that's about 7,000 more than expected. Its less expensive models drove the sales, offsetting the impact of global shortage of parts. Tesla's latest numbers are over 100% higher than the same time last year, but are only up 2% on the last quarter, which was its previous record. Still, one analyst expects Tesla sales to exceed 850,000 vehicles this year. This next story might make you a little bit jealous. LinkedIn is giving nearly its entire company next week off. That includes employees all around the world for the whole week starting Monday, and they still get paid. The idea is to prevent burnout. LinkedIn wants its workers to use the time to unplug and recharge, like a Tesla. Also, since almost everyone has the same week off, they won't have to dig through accumulated emails after the vacation. The week off includes, for LinkedIn's nearly 16,000 full-time workers, a core team of employees will continue to work for the week, but they'll be able to reschedule time off later. Don't worry. Still to come this evening, the IRS will soon send refunds to some taxpayers. It has to do with the new tax break from the stimulus package that was just passed. And a Belgian chocolate maker plans a unique new flavor for Easter. He says chocolate is a great way to lift the lockdown blues. That and more after the short break.
Here's what a reader writes to best-selling author James Cook about his new book, The Great Gold Comeback, Bankruptcy of the Welfare State. There is no way I could ever properly express my thanks to you for the Gold Comeback book and all that you have written within it. What a real treasure. Get this hard-hitting volume absolutely free. It covers economics, inflation, socialism, welfarism, capitalism, crashes, panics, interventionism, and crisis. Regularly $29. Yours free. Call 1-800-328-1860.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Americans who lost their jobs last year and have already filed their tax returns will have one less headache to deal with. The Internal Revenue Service will automatically recalculate the returns to account for new stimulus tax break. That's on the first $10,200 of unemployment compensation received in 2020. The IRS will now send any refund directly to taxpayers, likely starting in May and continuing into the summer. The provision is part of the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that President Biden signed last month. That was after millions of people had already filed their 2020 returns. The U.S. is rolling out its first price update for flood insurance in 50 years. The revised premiums fall under FEMA's National Flood Insurance Program. They'll now be based on a property's value and risk of flooding, not just on elevation in a flood zone. FEMA said it expects 200,000 policies to see large premium increases, while over 1 million will see decreases. The rules take effect this October for new policies and in April of next year for older ones. Good news for theme park lovers in California. After a year of closed doors, the iconic attractions are back in action. Visitors are welcome starting this month with some restrictions. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Theme parks in Southern California began reopening Thursday after almost a year-long closure. Six Flags Magic Mountain, 30 miles north of Los Angeles, was one of the first to open its doors. There, excited daredevils lined up, eager for the thrill of the rides.
You know, it's pretty good. I've been missing this place for 13 months. It's nice to be, I'm a big theme park fan, so it's nice to be able to go ahead and, ride some rides again. Even just walk around, it's pretty nice.
California health officials have allowed theme and amusement parks to restart operations on April 1st with severely limited capacity. But that's only if the counties where they operate are removed from the most stringent purple tier, part of California's color-coded pandemic classification system.
It feels pretty good. It's nice to actually be out again and feel somewhat normal, even though, got the precautions and running every other train or things like that. It takes a little getting used to, but better than being stuck at home, that's for sure.
Masks and other safety measures are still required, and the parks will initially only open to state residents. Attendance would range from 15% to 35% of normal capacity.
So we are contactless from the point where you get your temperature checked, contactless through the security screening. We have plexi barriers up at our ticket booths. On the coasters, we are skipping every other row. Only groups who are allowed to be together will ride together.
In the coastal community of Carlsbad, south of Los Angeles, Legoland also opened its doors on Thursday after months spent closed. Other theme parks scheduled to reopen in Southern California include Universal Studios on April 16th and Disneyland on April 30th. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The pandemic's been hard on those of us with an adventurous spirit, but for anyone with an adventurous appetite, a trip to Belgium on your pallet rather than a plane may well be the best Easter gift this year. One Chocolatier has a new flavor in store and online, and NTD's Colin Fredrickson will tell you what it is.
Belgian chocolate maker Dominique Persone is known for producing unusual flavors. Some unexpected combinations include bacon and fried onions. This year, he offers a special adventure to shoppers, a new taste that reminds people of nature.
So we make a juice of grass, Granny Schmidt, and to put an extra acidity on it, we use the Japanese lime. It's yuzu. And the combination of those two, it's amazing.
Persone is counting on the new flavor to promote his business ahead of Easter. His own shop is in the canal-based historic city of Bruges. Normally, Easter is one of the busiest seasons for local tourism. But now the pandemic and travel bans have kept foreign visitors away.
Here in Bruges, we're very known for chocolate. I think we have more than 60 chocolate shops in town. Most of them are closed because they're really focused on tourism. For us, tourists are very important too, but thanks God we have a lot of local customers. And I think 50% of our customers are local customers. But of course, it's not like a normal year. Eh?
Persone believes chocolate contains a mood-lifting ingredient that counters depression. For his customers, chocolate brings joy and hope to Easter reunions during the gloomy lockdown.
Now I'm gonna buy something for me and my girlfriend because with Corona we're not seeing much of our friends. It's very hard, and that makes life a little bit better. So I would say chocolate makes life a bit better.
Belgium is facing a third wave of infections and tighter contact restrictions. Stores are open only by appointment. Non-essential travel is banned over the holiday.
That's the latest business updates for this week. You can still catch NTD's Evening News with Stephanie Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. But for NTD Business, that's all for this week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you Monday.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.